In this video, I'm going to be discussing tagging. I'm actually not going to demo anything in this video. There will be sub-videos or secondary videos on each of the core topics of tagging. So this is just an overview, if you will. There are three types of tags, really four, but for this presentation, I'm combining labels and issues, and I'll point out the differences between them. But as you can see, there are labels and issues, custom columns, and bookmarks. And I'm going to talk about each one of these core types. Labels and issues, they are very similar in usage. Each is attached directly to an object. What do I mean by that? I mean, when you look at the metadata of an object could be a document, anything in your case, there is actually a column for labels and there is a column for issues. And when you assign an issue or a label to a document, the column for issues or labels gets populated with whatever tag you just gave it. There are a few key differences though. Labels are used throughout the product for identifying document groups. So if you're trying to build a document group so you can assign it to somebody else, or so you can export it, or so you can do some mass action on it, you're going to want to use a label for that. Labels can be of two types. They can be a folder or an actual label. Forgive me for using the word labels twice in that sentence. I know it's a little confusing, but think of it this way. A label can be a folder that holds other labels, or it can actually be a label itself. So folders cannot be assigned to a document, but they can have children labels. Labels cannot have children labels, but they can be assigned to a document. So let's say we wanted to create the Tim folder, and in the Tim folder have label A, B, and C. So I could go label documents with the labels A, B, or C, but I could not give them the Tim label. The Tim label is just a folder holding labels A, B, and C. Issues, on the other hand, are used only as document tags. They are not used for mass actions throughout the products. They're just really for sorting and filtering documents. Issues, differently than labels, can be both folders and end tags at the exact same time. So in the example we had before where we had the Tim folder and tags A, B, and C, if we had the Tim issue code and children underneath it, A, B, and C, we could tag a document with both Tim and A, B, or C. So those are labels and issues. These are probably the primary mechanism by which documents are tagged. Then we have custom columns. Custom columns are really, really underrated. They're incredibly powerful. They actually create a column in the database. And then you can utilize that column for coding the documents. There are 5 types of columns. There are radio, buttons, check mark, text, date, or number. And as their name suggests, they govern the functionality of the custom column. So if you have a custom column that is a radio button, there'll be several values in it that you can code against. Either, again, in the example we've been using where we had, let's say, the Tim column, and it's a radio column and it has options A, B, or C, you can only ever choose options A, B, or C. You can't choose all of them. Check mark, you can choose all of them. And then text, date, and number are pretty self-explanatory. Custom columns, just like labels and issues, are directly attached to objects, meaning that if you go and create a custom column, that's generic for the database, but then when you assign a tag, let's say a radio button, that will be directly attached to a specific object. And then finally, one of the, I would say, the bigger drawbacks of custom columns, or one of the most significant limitations, is it's case specific. So if you create a custom column Tim in one case and a custom column Tim in another case, those are fundamentally different columns, and you cannot sort of start thinking them as one column that's fungible between the two cases. It's not the case. The last type of tagging you can do is bookmarking. Um, bookmarks are objects of their own. You actually, when you create a bookmark, if you expose the filters correctly in the grid, you will actually see you have created an object in your database. Bookmarks can hold other objects, so it's different than we've been talking about with the labels and the custom columns, and that it's not directly connected to an object. Meaning, when you bookmark an object, actually what happens is the object goes into the bookmark. The bookmark doesn't get associated with the object. Instead, it's the other way around. As a result of these, obviously, you can have a bookmark that holds lots of different objects. And in fact, bookmarks can be used cross-case. And depending on how you set up your case, you can have a bookmark that holds objects from multiple cases. Most people are very familiar with the bookmarking functionality in FTK and Quincy. It's the same. So you'll know you can create notes and comments. You can have file snippets. Then there's even specialized reporting for bookmarks. So if you're interested in any of these different tagging mechanisms, there is a video on each of them, and I would encourage you to explore those because I think it's really useful to successfully using Quincy. Anyway, thank you very much for your time, and I hope this was helpful.